How's it going? I want to take the time to talk about Cal Newport's digital minimalism. So, I think we're facing a little bit of an issue here where a lot of people are using devices way too much and it's starting to consume too much of their lives, too much of their time, and it's leading to some other issues. So, one of the books that had previously been recommended to me was Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. So the book starts off, and it goes in several parts. It starts off with kind of addressing what digital minimalism is, what the current state of everything is that you might be experiencing, to help you convince to follow this journey for digital minimalism. So pretty much it's laying out the problem and the cause for the problem, and then it's giving you the effect as well as a solution for the problem. So in the start, I already knew that I did have an issue of technology, like for example my phone here. If we check my screen on time, of which I will make sure to throw some screenshots of this in the video. But if we look at today, the day that I'm recording this, being January 20th, we've got about 3.5 hours of screen on time. My weekly average is 5 hours, 30 minutes. But if we go back just to where it was my worst week on this phone, I did recently switch phones. 6.5 hours, but in semester, honestly, on some of the more bored, slow days and stuff like that, we'd be breaking 7-8 hours of screen on time. And that's way too much just to be on my phone, especially if I'm looking at this from the perspective of a student, or occasionally I'm on my iPad that for some reason has blood on it right here from my hand that's now bleeding, but I'm on that for 3-4 hours a day taking notes. Then we've got my laptop, I'm also on that. If not, then sometimes I'm on my TV. So all of these benefits are absolutely great to some extent if I'm looking at it through the lens of it affecting my education and what I can do with my education, where I can just consolidate all of my notes into my iPad, work with that. But I also do watch a decent bit of YouTube on my iPad, which that's not necessarily beneficial to any educational aspect I can get from my iPad. My laptop is pretty normally focused towards just work, education, stuff like that, as well as video editing. Can't say I do too much shopping on that, or just browsing around useless crap. But, especially with my phone, I was looking at paring things back. I do have my watch, so I can just look at my watch to get my notifications, so that way I know kind of what's going on. Do I need to attend to it on my phone if I don't feel like using my phone? But nevertheless, I decided to read Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. So the way that he addresses it is, initially these technologies were brought in to make our lives easier, but it started to evolve past that. One of the examples from the book is, why would Texas and Maine need to communicate? The way that they laid this out is when they were making the telegraphs, and it was before, they would just have to, if you're going to communicate from Texas to Maine, you're going to have to write a letter, and then it's going to spend a lot of time there. So really the only information you're going to send is that important. But once the telegraph came around, it could literally be, hey, what's the weather in Texas? They're sending it to Maine. Why does that affect Maine? To where if you look at the general purpose and what the technology is bringing to your life, even if you're bringing technology into your life, you need to be intentional with the use and how you're going to utilize the technology to keep the benefit without affecting the quality of your life. So, that kind of lays out the problem, is the technologies we're bringing into our life is kind of taking away from the quality of the life when it was once meant to enhance it. However, if we start to scale this back and look at, okay, so we've addressed this, then they do take the time to kind of look into a few areas where technology is being used by people and a lot of real life examples. For example, the Amish, how sometimes they experiment with technology. Sometimes you'll have an Amish man with a CNC mill and stuff like that, but it's running off of solar power. They're living not necessarily off the land, but they're not connected to the power grid. So a lot of the times, the technologies and the uses for a lot of the electronics in the Mormon area, they can still use it, but it's not completely consuming their lives, and they're extremely intentional with what they're choosing to bring into their lives. They'd normally test it out, and they're going to have a few people look at it and kind of see the effect that it has on a person, and then decide if they bring it in or out of our technology. I think an example like that's a little too extreme for what I was hoping to take away from this book, where I'm not going to test the technology or see the effects that it has on me by going through the lens of other people, but I definitely think that it's great to do. Then as you go into the second part of the book, it kind of goes into some plans of action that you can take to assess your digital minimalist journey, which is first you should do like a detox period, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. I believe in the book it was 30 days. Don't quote me on that. I've been looking at a lot of like timescale stuff. So a lot of timescales are on my mind. Then after that, you're going to go into a brief period where you slowly reintroduce the technologies into your life, and you're going to see how it affects you personally. Now, it's not like you're a drug addict getting out of rehab, and then you're going to go snort a crap ton of coke. Not going to swear on camera, but it's like you're getting out of rehab, and then you're going to go snort coke. That's not kind of what you want to do when you want to ease into it. If the technologies are gone, and you feel like there are some that can be reintroduced into your life and bring benefit, they suggest that you slowly reintroduce it. See if they actually bring a benefit into your life, or if you just feel like, hey, there's no longer a need for it, just leave it out. There's no reason to reintroduce something just to reintroduce something. That would be counterproductive. And then it's just being more intentional with technologies and digital items that you choose to bring into your life. The more that you bring into your life, you really need to assess if there's an actual benefit that you're going to get from it. One of the things that's pretty emphasized throughout the book is just seeing if the benefit that it brings into your life is worth it. Or I believe some of the phrasing in the book is, if you were to miss out on it, would there be really any negative impact on your life? Would you be suffering as a result of leaving out? For example, you could probably delete Instagram. Honestly, nothing's going to happen. There would be no negative repercussions. You might miss Instagram, but by having Instagram, there's nothing necessarily that is beneficial to your life. That was honestly a pretty terrible example, but when it comes to the impact that I think a book like Digital Minimalism could have, I think there's a great return on investment if you do choose to take the time to sit down and read the book and actually absorb it and comprehend it. If you're not going to look to apply or use any of the information that's given to you in the book, then I think it's overall going to be kind of useless, just because at that point you're reading it to consume something, but you're not reading it to apply. I think if you look to apply it, then you're going to have a huge takeaway from the book, and it can lead to substantial increases in the quality of your life. I know for me personally, it brought forth a few ideas that I am overusing my phone, I'm overusing my iPad, I'm overusing stuff. I think that if I scale back on the quantity of time that I'm dumping into things without a high return of interest, that I could put more effort into editing videos like this one, other videos on the channel, shorts, growth, my job search, and stuff like that, as well as the quality of my education and my happiness in life. But I do think a few of the major lessons from the book that were brought forth is you need to be intentional with your time overall, as well as you need to be comfortable being able to spend time alone with your thoughts. That means not always having headphones in or having music, audio playing, something going on to stimulate you. You should be comfortable spending time alone with yourself, completely there and present with yourself, like a meditation of sort. And that doesn't even mean that you can't be with people and stuff like that, but that you should be able to be there, present, with no stimulation, and not feel that there's a need or a compulse to just be on your phone, just be browsing, just be consuming something. Because one of the big things that was highlighted is if you look at the effects of technology, right now my generation, from late 90s to early 2000s, we're kind of seeing the long-term effects of how technology is interacting with us as a mental state. Before, anxiety wasn't the most common, whether or not it was just not talked about that much. Maybe that was the point, maybe it just wasn't diagnosed that much, but as more technology was integrated into our lives, they did see the numbers of anxiety go from right here and just start climbing as time went on. I do think that that's the points that they bring up in the book is that a lot of the anxiety is brought on by feeling disconnected or feeling like you're missing out on stuff, because that has a huge social impact just on people in general. I'm not a psychology major. I'm not like in the field of psychology, so I'm not going to take the time to properly attempt to explain the interactions with human psychology and how technology can be parallel to social interaction, and how missing out on social interaction can be paralleled in technology, but technology and social interaction don't necessarily equate to each other, but the effects it's causing on people are closely related, it would appear. Try and link some articles below. If not, I would recommend reading the book, looking into this more. It's absolutely fascinating research, in my opinion. It can help you really improve the quality of your life. But I think that it's good, especially looking at just minimizing the amount of news you consume, the amount of sources that you're pulling information from, and really looking at being intentional with the information that you're pulling into your life. Take, for example, when COVID started. Honestly, I don't watch the news, I'll be honest, but when I had to move back home from college just because everyone was in quarantine and pretty much everything was shut down, I didn't notice how much my parents watched the news and how the news was just constantly creating kind of a cyclical effect where it was always negative stuff, and a lot of it appeared to be not really looking at a middle ground, but one of the two extremes, or trying to pull people to two different extremes to kind of create a divide. Not necessarily a fan of that, but I feel like you should be able to assess the sources of media that you are consuming, and if you especially minimize a lot of the negativity and just focus on what you think actually applies to you or matters to you personally, that you'll have a better takeaway. Because, I'll be honest, I don't care what's happening in Florida. Could that eventually, tidal wave and affect where I'm living now in Wisconsin? Sure. Well, there's a slight cut. I kind of lost my train of thought, but my roommate is now taking a shower. There's a quick delay, so that might be in the background audio, and I will try and minimize that. But I think my train of thought was around that you should be intentional with the sources and stuff that you're bringing into your life, especially when it comes to all of the media that's there for audience retention and attention engineering, I believe, as they brought it up with Facebook and stuff like that, where a lot of platforms are looking to bring in items that will capture your attention and try and draw you into just spending more time on the platform, either so they can collect data on you and sell that data, or so there can be advertisements that are present and just kind of they can gain revenue from you spending more time on their services. That's neither here nor there, and that's a different conversation, and I don't necessarily want to get into it when I'm reviewing Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. I think that it's an absolutely fantastic book, though. I think that it brings in some very crucial and dire points that as a society and individuals we need to address, which is how we constantly bring in new technologies, but there's no necessary return on investment when we're looking at our personal healths, our personal well-beings. It's great that we've created a society that data can be transferred so well, and that there is an open network of communication and sharing ideas to where I can Okay, so, quick little side tangent here. Don't want to make it sound like I'm absolutely bashing technology or anything to any extent, but I think that it is beneficial in fact that while I was home over Christmas break, my dad started talking about how amazing it is that before he used to have, he's from the Philippines originally, moved here, and now originally when he wanted to talk to his family, still in the Philippines, that he would have to call home, there would have to be an operator to connect them, they would have to eventually wait until the person that they actually wanted to talk to was there. Eventually the operator would call them back and they would be able to have a conversation. Now he was talking about how amazing it was that he could just send a text to some of my uncles that are visiting right now in the Philippines, and he could just talk with the family. They could hop on a FaceTime call, a Skype call, something like that, and just converse. There is no delays in communication, and they're able to do that. that's kind of a benefit of technology and how it would be worthwhile in your life to have something like a cell phone and stuff like that. That's kind of a benefit of stalking, where you're intentional with your use case, where maybe necessarily I have this so I can communicate with my family that's across the world. They know that I'm okay and they're up to date with what's going on me. And then you can use technology to benefit your relationships and bring overall, like, mental, maybe physical benefits to you if you do use it with fitness trackers. That's not necessarily talked about in the book, but it is talked about being more intentional with what you bring into your life. So I do apologize for that quick side tangent. I don't want it to sound like I'm bashing technology. I think that it has its use case, but it does kind of talk like, hey, maybe you don't need Facebook, maybe you don't need Instagram. That's not necessarily bringing any benefit to you personally or any of the relationships surrounding you. But if you're using something like, you're using a service to be able to communicate with your family and your loved ones while you're away from them, that's a benefit that technology can bring. And if that's what you're using it for, you should assess how much it matters in your life before you choose to bring more and more technology into your life. But with that being said, I absolutely think people should read Digital Minimalism, create their own viewpoints, because I think individual viewpoints matter extremely a lot. But that was kind of my thoughts and some of my takeaways, as well as some of the application use cases I think this book had. I will link it in the description below, probably through Amazon. But I hope you guys have a fantastic day. See you in the next one.